What is up guys, the Strong Boys 19 here, and this is another album review into the Rolling Stones discography. I'm going to be reviewing the 1994 album entitled Voodoo Lounge. Voodoo Lounge is the 20th studio album by the Rolling Stones. It was released on the 11th of July 1994. This is the first time to be released without their own record label, as this was the first time album to be made with the Virgin Records label. This is the first album after the release 5 years previously of 1989's Steel Wheels, and to be made without their longtime original bassist Bill Wyman. Darryl Jones, who previously played with Miles Davis, was asked to be the band's bass player, and he would remain the band's bass player as a contracted musician both in the studio and on tour, alongside the keyboard work by Chuck Leavell. Although they're not band members, they would remain as collaborators with the Stones for the next quarter century. This was produced by Don Was alongside the Glimmer Twins. The album released 4 singles: Love Is Strong on the 4th of July 1994, You Got Me Rocking on the 26th of September, Out of Tears on the 28th of November, and I Go Wild on the 3rd of July 1995. The album went to number 1 in the UK Albums Chart and number 2 on the US Billboard 200. Voodoo Lounge, for many Stones fans, I personally think that they would regard this as one of the best Rolling Stones albums in a long time. And as much as I surprisingly really liked a lot of Steel Wheels, this is, in my personal opinion, that Voodoo Lounge, while it is like some sort of a return back into their classic blues rock roots vibe of instrumentation, and as an album by itself for that, I think it is pretty much overhyped, and I don't really think of it as like one of the classics or one of the strongest Rolling Stones albums. Does this album contain one of the best later Stones tracks in a long time? And the answer is yes, and I would definitely give Daniel Lanois a lot of credit for persuading the rest of the band and Mick Jagger to go into the kind of direction that he wanted for the Stones to do. And it is pretty strange that this album was released through Virgin Records instead of their own label, the Rolling Stones Records label. But this production is excellent, one of the best produced Rolling Stones albums, in my opinion, in a very long time. Very, very good songs that I will talk about, but unfortunately some negatives that I have with this album that derails the enjoyments that I was getting into on this whole album. We go to the first song and single, Love Is Strong. Very, very good opener with its loose lyricism from Jagger, the way he's speaking and addressing the listener into this sound, and the jamming on the instrumentation was brilliant. Just nothing too complex, just all effective and simple. Brilliant opener to start the album with a great touch. Same goes with the second track, You Got Me Rocking. This is a song that I possibly would prefer over Love Is Strong, but this one is just as strong as the previous track. I love the distorted guitar riffs, and it's really upbeat excitement, perfect driving force. One of my personal favorites on this album. Sparks Will Fly. Now, this is a pretty unusual track to be inspired by an argument between Keith Richards and rock and roll icon Jerry Lee Lewis, as Keith personally invited Lewis to Ronnie Wood's house just to jam and play with the guys, and Lewis was thinking to himself that they're going to make an album with him in it, but to Jerry's disappointment, things did not go well. I think this is an underrated, great song. I really like how the song delivers. Some fans would be dismissive of, but I do enjoy this one. As well as the other distorted rock tracks go, I Go Wild is another favourite for me. Again, like You Got Me Rocking, it's got some brilliant guitar tones, and its structure to this one is tight, punching drums, and a brilliant chorus. Another standout track to one of the ballads on this album, the single Out of Tears, which is one of the best vocals that Mick Jagger had ever put onto tape. He shows a lot of expression and it's quite emotional. We've never heard Jagger in this kind of state of vocals since like a song from Wild Horses or Shine a Light. Slow-paced, beautiful song with harmonies on Keith Richards as well, and the guitar solo. It is, for me, one of the best singles from the later era of the Stones. Blinded by Rainbows, which is another slow-paced track, and this one, along with the other songs, contains more acoustic guitar-driven sounds. Blinded by Rainbows is another mellow piece of music, beautifully strung chords, and the harmonies are wonderful. You know, you can't go wrong with Stones music being acoustic driven, but speaking of acoustic driven songs, there are quite a bundle of ballads, and unfortunately most of them don't really go well, especially with the songs like The Worst. Keith Richards does lead vocals. After Sparks Will Fly, this one falls flat for me. I just never really cared for it. It feels too unstructured, and it's not like one of the best in terms of memorable stuff through and through, which has some pretty unusual experiments on the instrumentation. It is another slow-paced track, but this one goes on so long at 6 minutes in length. I mean, it doesn't go anywhere. Sweethearts Together, I don't mind the instrumentation. I liked how it sounds, but with these kinds of lyrics, it's too happy and poppy. Not one of the best for me, but the instrumentation was passable. Never a fan of a song called Suck on a Jugular. Something like a reminiscent of Fingerprint File, but with its chorus, the way these lyrics were done. There are some tracks to this album that I give a lot of respect and some enjoyability, like the singles Mean Disposition, Return Back into its rock and roll roots. Another thing about the album is that it's 15 tracks, 62 minutes. Now, I don't mind a lot of the album lengths on many Stones albums, but with these tracks that feel dragging and nothing really strong or as great as other songs, it makes the listening of the album a little weary. And I know that Exile on Main Street is 67 minutes with 18 tracks, but those collections of songs from that album feel more raw and focused and more memorable, as with some songs to this, they are pretty forgettable. Voodoo Lounge is a Stones album that I personally think it is a bit of above average at best, and like I said, it is not one of the best ever Stones albums in a long time, but I will still give a lot of the band props for trying out what kind of direction that they were told to do. Like I said, the production was really good. The sound of the band growing back into great parts of territory in songwriting value. But as an album all the way through, this is to me not one of the classics in the Stones discography. A lot of great stuff, but at the same time, some of the stuff that feels really filler-driven and nothing strong. I'm going to give Voodoo Lounge by the Rolling Stones a 6 out of 10. Please let me know what you think of this album in the comments below. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll keep you guys posted for more videos in the near future.